girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Vajras, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And a real quick housekeeping note, if you're watching us on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, or Odyssey, please hit that follow and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever podcast platform you utilize, please hit that follow and subscribe button so I can continue to bring you conversations like the one I'm bringing you today. I'm catching up with David and Annamaria from the band Vajra. What's going on, guys?
Hi, how you doing?
Hey.
Good. I got it all right?
You got it right. It's all good.
Nice. Glad we had that pep talk before going on. But usually before when I have people on for the first time, before we really get into the Vaj, I like to ask people what they originally wanted to be when they grew up.
That's a good question. I never wanted to grow up, so that's kind of my answer. But
He still hasn't grown up.
I still haven't grown up. I think when I was in like first grade, I wanted to study dinosaurs.
Oh, how
That
cute.
was, yeah. I think I like dinosaurs.
Nice.
And then it turned into girls and metal.
I wanted to be Madonna.
Nice. And then, speaking of that, then when was it that like music caught your ear, and who were some of your early influences?
For me, I started. I was very young when I started. So my parents weren't really musicians, but Dad would always play music in the car. So I started playing violin at 6, I think it was, and flute at 8. And wasn't fully satisfied. I played through high school because I'm playing classical music, and playing on the flute is not. I wasn't listening to Jethro Tull, and that wasn't really my thing, anyways, at that time. So, like I said, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Prince was a huge influence. But I started. I guess it goes back even earlier than that, because I started dancing when I was 3. So there was a piano, and it was tap, jazz, and ballet. So it was just mainly classical, and I loved to just move to it. So I would dance more than I would play. And then I started playing at 6. And then moved over into 8, and then started playing guitar when I was late, like 20. But I don't play well. I'm actually awful. But I can play enough to be able to write. And keyboards and vocals were peppered in probably earlier than that, but not professionally. And then I started singing really late. I think I was in my mid-20s when I started actually thinking of singing. And then I went to Juilliard and studied for a year, composition for a year. And I'm really, more writing. And theory and all that sort of thing. And now I'm taking classical Hindustani vocal lessons because I'm just going deeper and deeper and deeper. But when I went to India and lived there, that's when I wrote the demo for the album. And so that's when I kind of seriously started honing my skills. Yeah.
Gotcha. And how about you, David?
Completely different story. I got into music in 3rd grade. I saw the Kiss Destroyer album, and I wanted to buy it.
and then became a Kiss fan, and then, you know, went into the Iron Maidens and Judas Priest, AC/DC, and then straight into Venom, Merciful Fate, you know, all of that stuff growing up, and started playing guitar at like 13 or 14 because I wanted to, you know, be Ace Frehley, as every other guitar player on the planet wanted to be, including Ace Frehley.
By ear, though. He's so I came from like
completely by ear.
classical training. He's just by ear.
Yeah.
Totally different, you know, but really cool. And
it's, you know, I'm able to pick out songs by ear, obviously, as every other guitar player, you know, should be able to do. And that's how I learned to play, you know, and and then just like, you know, my friends showing me stuff, and, you know, one thing leads to another, and I'm playing guitar many years. And
Nice.
it was never I never took lessons. I never did anything educational with it. I just picked up my guitar and played. And that's it. Just
went through that Kiss gateway, and that was over.
That's what it was. It was a Kiss gateway, and then it became, you know, all the usual, you know, new wave of British heavy metal, and then thrash metal and industrial metal. I spent many years in an industrial metal band, and just that was it. And then came into her band.
Nice. And then, like, what was the music scene like in the areas that you grew up at?
pretty good. I mean, I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, so there's this venue called The Chance. So a lot of my friends were into, I mean, it was like rock and metal was big. I wasn't really into that scene until I was in high school, like junior high, I guess. High school is when I started to get involved in all that. But I wasn't really involved into it until even later, but I started to get involved then. Well, it was metal, hardcore. Hardcore was huge, but at the Chance, everybody came through the Chance. Yeah. So, you know, I guess actually, and then also in high school, no, in college, I started, now I'm dating myself, but in college, I started to get involved with grunge, and because everybody got involved with grunge. So Alice in Chains, the Dirt album was like on repeat, like over and over and over and over and over again. So that really like started my descent into everything. I would say the sound and the influences and all that. But the scene was pretty hopping. I mean, the Chance was huge and everybody was there.
Yeah, the Chance was huge. Yeah, I had, again, I grew up in Long Island, New York City, and, you know, Limelight, Lemoore, Brooklyn, Lemore's in Queens, all of that stuff I hung out at. I went to every single show. I saw every major band when they played Lemore's, you know, and so, you know, I was at Slayer's first East Coast show and last East Coast show, you know. But metal was really big in New York back in the day, you know, the venues like the Ritz, all that stuff, metal and hardcore, and I did all of it. As with all my friends, you know, most of whom I don't see anymore because, you know, times change. But yeah, I grew up, music was everywhere. I worked at a record store, I worked at Tower Records, and just, you know, went to every single concert. So, and there was no shortage of concerts in New York because, again, like, everybody came through. So I was lucky that way. I saw every band, you know. So
yeah, I've ended up becoming friends with a lot of musicians from the New York like hardcore scene, especially, you know, over the years. And just I was out doing like Navy training one time up in Kings Point, New York, and a couple of my friends that were from Cleveland bands had moved to New York and were working there. And then one of our friends was coming through playing, I think it was like the Knitting Factory at the time out there. Sure. And I had the weekend off, so we went into town, and then I met, like, you know, Vinny Stigma and all the guys from Agnostic Front, and you know, the Madball guys and all that. And it was quite a, you know, I've been friends with them ever since. It was a good time. There was no shortage of things to do for sure. There. Yeah. You hear all the stories about CBGBs and all that, you know. It's just always loved talking with those guys. And then, like you mentioned, some of the other bands that you had played with prior to this one. Who were some of the, like when you first got started? Who were some of the bands that you first started playing out with?
Well, believe it or not, the first band I really started playing out with that was considered somewhat known was a magician named Criss Angel, and
nice.
I was one of his early guitar players when he like went from cock rock to industrial. And then I left Criss Angel's industrial project to join a band called BILE, which played Cleveland many times.
Yeah, that we've met. We've hung out before, I'm pretty sure.
We probably met. I don't remember many of them.
I remember Bear.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, Bear.
And
Christoph,
still alive,
Yeah.
Christoph, yeah. I mean, they were my best friends. We're still friends. Everyone's, the core members, Bear and Christoph, are still around. I don't know if the band will ever play again. Who knows? But that was a lot of fun. I don't remember much because I was drunk most of the time.
I know. I actually seen BILE for the first time during one of my trips to New York. A friend of mine, Jack, used to own an industrial record store in Lakewood, and then he moved to New York for a little while, and he opened it up in New York, and I went to stay with him for a week, and he took me to all the labels like Roadrunner and all of them downtown and everything.
Yeah.
This was pre 9/11, and BILE played at some like old like bank or something.
Yeah, it was called the bank.
Bank.
It's called the bank.
Yeah. And that was the first time I had seen him, and I was just like, and I'm I grew up with Mushroomhead. I'm friends with Mushroomhead out here, so I was just like, oh my God, New York.
I remember playing with we played with Mushroomhead. I remember years ago.
Stitch. I ended up connecting Stitch with. I
don't know them. I don't know them personally, but
or whatever. But yeah, BILE, man. I actually, when you guys put out that VHS, they thanked me in it because that was some of my footage that was used.
Okay, so I'm the one that edited and put together that videotape.
My God,
so
that's your
Yeah,
footage?
so look at this.
So wait a minute. So the Cleveland shows was your footage?
Yeah.
It's
I had a
crazy.
VHS camera, and it was like I did Domain Cleveland Entertainment. That's how I first got involved. I mean, that was back when, it was a blur for me too, because I was doing a lot of drinking back then as well. But I'm 15 years sober now, so that's why I do this.
Congratulations. I think that some of that Cleveland stuff was at the Blind Lemon. Does that sound
yeah. Yeah, the Blind Lemon was the venue, and now it's called the Foundry.
I don't know.
Foundry.
I don't know it, but those were many fun drunken nights that, if I could remember some of the details, I would tell you. But
we probably don't want to rehash some of those details today, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow, what a small world, man. That's really cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the
okay.
No, it's part of our,
it's all good.
It's part of this. I bring that element of, I don't know what you call it, but the guitar playing I did with BILE, I bring it to this band in a way, with whatever sensibility I have with sounds and heaviness or whatever you call it. I don't even know, but everything I learned there, I now bring here. So.
But he brings a lot of feel. I mean, when he joined the band in 2015, it was like it was a lot of feel. And we were technical, but we were lacking in that. So what he brings just kind of like just grooves and I think that it's just years of playing.
It's years of playing, and also she says technical. Some of the Vajra stuff is extremely technical, but it's very groovy. And it took me a while to learn some of the guitar parts. She had recorded the first album before I joined the band, and I actually wanted to join because I loved that first album called Pleroma, and I was like, I need to learn these guitar parts, and I need to take all of these guitar parts and put them together as a one guitar live show, which is what we did with BILE. The layered guitar. You got one guitar player on stage, so it's a challenge, and it's fun, and especially with Vajra's music, the feel, it's all about
It's
the
all
feel.
about feel.
Because if you don't have the feel, it'll
It
sound
won't
sterile.
work. It's kind of like the way I thought of it was like each individual part, it's like writing classical, basically. Each individual part is its own voice in a conversation. And if you don't play that voice, it doesn't match up with the other things that are happening. And so it just doesn't work. It sounds like a mush if it's not there.
But
So
the voices have to slither.
They
you know, like a snake.
Yeah.
If you listen to some of these Vajra parts, it's like no instrument is playing the same thing, but they all fit together, and that's what's beautiful about it. If you really put on headphones.
Yeah.
Then, like, when did Vajra come together for you, Annamaria?
So I was living in India, and that's when I wrote the demo. We played our first show on 11/11/11. Technically 11/10/11, but we played it into 11/11/11. But I wrote the demo in India, and then I got in touch with a friend of mine, Blake Fleming, who used to drum with a band called the Mars Volta, and he was the original drummer who did like their demo, and then he joined the band again in 2006. And so I was like, I asked him, do you want to drum on this? He's like, well, let me hear it first. And he listened and he liked it, and he said, yeah, sure, this is awesome. He's like, are you sure this is your first album? And I was like, it's my first album. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm reading Mix Magazine. I'm reading what Joe Parisi does and how he records guitars. I don't know, but I'm learning on the fly. And so he joined first, laid the drum tracks down, and then I found I was on a search to find a bassist, and that's when I found
Doug Wright.
Doug, and Doug used to play in a local band here, but he came recommended, and then eventually went on to play with Dolly Parton. So like he was just this amazing.
He was an amazing local bass player. A little bit, he's unknown, but he played on the Pleroma album. I have to say, if there's any bass players out there, go to Spotify, listen to a song called The Apple, and try to play the bass to that. It's 8 minutes of just freight train bass playing, and I don't know a lot of bass players that could play that. It's amazing.
That song almost didn't make it on Pleroma, but I was writing it as we're just about to record, and I was like, it's got to go on. So it went on the album, but it's a crazy bass, and I started writing that on bass actually. But couldn't play what he played. I would play little like licks, and I'm like, it's like this, And then he came in and was like, oh yeah.
I played bass for 10 years. I couldn't play what he played.
And so he was amazing. And then I found I was in need of a guitarist. So then I was like, who am I going to find for guitar? And then another guy came recommended, Will Dahl, who had played with Harley's War and a lot of local bands and hardcore bands in around the area, regional area. So Will came in, and then we dropped the guitar track. So no one had listened. No one knew it was just going to be a studio project. That's all it was. And we got it all together. I went to Sylvia Massey to record my vocals, and she mixed it. And then we went down to LA and had, I'm going to zone out on his name, but this mastering guy that she put me in touch with, Tom Baker, mastered. And then I sent it to the guys, and I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, holy shit, it's pretty cool. We had no idea how this was going to turn out. It was going to be horribly wrong, or it was going to be cool. And so everyone was pleasantly surprised. And I said, well, you want us to play a few shows. So we played a few shows around the area. And then Blake was just getting married, having a baby. So he's like, I can't continue this on the road. But the guys continued for some time. And then, of course, we had a bunch of lineup changes. And here we are now.
And then I came in.
Yeah, so it all started. The first show was 11/11/11, 11/10/11, 11/11.
And I'm always curious on band names. What was the inspiration for the name, or what the meaning behind it?
Yeah, so Vajra, I had gone through like a large list of band names, and I didn't know what to do, but I had gotten this tattoo of a double Vajra, and the reason why I got the tattoo was because I had traveled through Tibet in like 2000, and came back and just thought, oh wow, these Hindu concepts are really cool. And Vajra is, in Tibetan it's the dorje, but in Hindi it's Vajra, and it's the thunderbolt or the diamond. It's the concept that which breaks through everything or anything. And it just kept resurfacing, and I'd had a crazy dream, and the dream was about this entity that was like, you're finally ready to see me. And I was going through this like spiritual awakening. So the band was really about that, because I was leaving a corporate job, just everything in my life on a trajectory to do, the robotic thing. And I was like, okay, I just don't want to spend the best years of my life doing that. And I don't think it's the right choice for me now. I need to do something creative, and I feel like I can tap into other things and help. I'm not afraid to tap into other things and manifest them materially. So that was the name that just kept coming up, because that's what that is. So it's Vajra.
Nice. And then when you the EP Irkalla,
yeah,
how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for that name, and is there a message within the album?
Yeah, so Irkalla is the Sumerian word for the underworld, and I was thinking of a concept of having a trilogy of albums, and at the time I was exploring basically civilization and why there was this imbalance between male female energies in our world right now, and I just kept tracing everything back and to the first civilization, which was the Sumerian civilization, ancient Sumeria, and that's when I started reading a lot about that stuff and became kind of obsessed with it. And so I was searching for names for this new album or EP, whatever was going to be. It turned out to be an EP, and Irkalla was the perfect name, because to me it was the first in this concept of trilogy of albums, the lowest level of consciousness. So it's like, base ego and superficial ideas about life and the world and relationships and all of that sort of thing, which if you're trapped in that can be hellish. Yeah. If you don't connect to something outside of yourself, I think for me it's more hell, because you're just kind of going with the wind and nothing's really satisfying, and you're consuming. It's materialism, it's lying, it's cheating, it's stealing, it's greed, it's all of that stuff, that you could just get caught up in. So Irkalla was a perfect word. And when I was going through that process of the name, I said to myself, I've got to learn cuneiform. So I taught myself how to learn, well, at least just that word. Like, I'm not going to write Irkalla on it. I want to write it in cuneiform. Like, I want to write it in the original, way to write it.
Makes sense.
So I contacted, so I was reading a book and I was practicing and whatever. And then I contacted Dr. Irving Finkel, who's one of the leading Assyriologists in the world. And I asked him, he's out of the British Museum. He's working out of the British Museum. I'm like, well, here I am. I know nothing about this stuff. I'm just teaching myself. This is the concept for the album. I've read The Descent of Inanna and back, which is this classic hero myth. And that pervades the story of what this EP is about. And, can you help me and just correct my spelling? Because I don't want to write this on an album and be wrong. And he's like, sure, I'll do it. So Dr. Irving Finkel corrected my spelling. So Irkalla is written in proper Sumerian on the EP.
It's also on the t-shirt.
It's also on the t-shirts. Yeah.
Which is available in our shop.
Yeah. If anyone's interested. With the Bernie relief, which is Inanna on, which was Inanna on she's like a goddess. She was one of their goddesses. on stone, because they used to write everything in stone, in clay actually. And we have a lot of the books, the stone reliefs, because there was a big fire at one of their biggest libraries, which was supposed to destroy everything, but instead of destroying, it's like a kiln. It preserved it even better. So we have a lot of the writings still out there if you can read cuneiform.
That's amazing. I love hearing about the spiritual journey. It's like, since I've been on one of my own since getting sober, and just trying to just see the world in a different, under a different set of eyes, and I love hearing other people's journeys. Like, I was a big, growing up, big Batman fan, and when you get into the story of Bruce Wayne, kind of going off and training and going on his exodus or whatever to become the Batman, and it's just like, not comparing myself to Batman by any means, but just like raised under a certain religion, raised in a certain household, raised under certain thoughts, then in the military, and then you get all kinds of other programs put on you. But then the awakening that happens when you finally start listening to spirit, or listening to like my higher power or whatever, you know. And I've really researched a lot of it seems like I do a lot of conspiratorial episodes on here too, so it's cool. It seems like we're being taken away from we're being kept in those lower levels in that Irkalla, I guess, by the world, by the TV, by the powers that be, that I think are aware of ancient Sumeria and the ways of evolution and living and whatever. But anyways, I'm going off on another one of my tangents, but
you're not actually, because that's exactly what the new song is about. It's about identifying these external forces that are around us, and understanding that they are external and that you've grown up with them, so that you have internalized them. But who are you outside of those teachings, if you can try to disassociate yourself from them in some way? So when I went to India, it was partly about that. It was really, I call it my self-imposed exile. It was really about coming outside of myself, outside of my norms. Why do I talk with my hands like this? Why am I shaking my head yes, when in India, yes is like this? It's a completely different set ways of existence or ways of being. There are many possibilities. And so if we could only try to teach ourselves or learn, and you don't have to go to India, you can do it in your own house. You can read, you can meditate, it can just come to you. We're all tapped into these things, even though we think we might not be. And sometimes we may be closer or more in tune sometimes rather than other times, because our inner being is less at turmoil. And that's part of the thing. Divide and conquer. People that want to control know these things. Nazi Germany, Goebbels, the propaganda machine. I mean, KGB propaganda, U.S. propaganda. Noam Chomsky talks a lot about that too. It's political, but it's also, religious. It's also individual, right? So we face a lot of this on many different levels. But if we can quiet ourselves a little bit to connect to the subtle body energies, and that's what I was starting to explore with Irkalla, is connecting to the subtle, not just the blaring things that come out at you, but that gut thing that happens sometimes, and you're like, oh, should I do that? Oh no, that's just a crazy voice inside my head. Yeah, no, that might be the thing that's most beneficial for you, and might be the truest thing for you to explore. So this song, Truth Has Many Lies, is about identifying the external, seeing that it's external, and then evaluating whether or not that's really something that's good for you, or if it's just something that was told to you and you just blindly accepted it. So you are on point, because that's exactly what we're doing.
I try and talk tell people that, I have these conversations with, that like every day we are, whether we want to believe in a spiritual world or not, we are at spiritual warfare every day. There's forces that, try and keep us in that. I'm big in frequencies and stuff too. Like they keep us in that low frequency, which I guess would be like Irkalla, to keep us, in fear. Fear keeps us in that low frequencies, and I'm trying to live more by faith and manifesting, my own destiny. I try and raise my daughters with that as well, just listening to that gut, listening to that voice, but also turning off the outside noise so you can hear it a lot of times too, I saw one of the things that I go to bed with, a lot of times is Tibetan bowls. And I've seen how you guys have utilized Tibetan bowls in your music as well. You want to share how that the creative process is like, bringing that into writing music?
Thank you for asking. That's really cool. So like we were one of the first bands that had a spirit table on tour when we would go on tour, and people were like, what is this? And I remember one time Dave was even like, we don't need this spirit table on table. What is all this? We're not going to bring this on to, like we don't, setting it up, setup's always crazy in between sets. And especially when you're like a lower band, it's like not like we have a crew, or anything like that. We're doing everything ourselves. It's like, we don't need the table. We can can the table. And I'm like, we can't can the table.
How do you sound check the Tibetan bowls,
Yeah. So I would just bring it. I would bring the Tibetan bowls on. I'd bring the Tibetan bells on the stage. It's all about that. Last tour, we brought a gong on stage, and I was gonging, which was fun. And I actually started doing I was thinking about doing the Tibetan bowls tonight, actually, we're doing a carving ceremony. We're thinking of doing a carving ceremony. I'm going to do something on the fly.
We bought
a pumpkin carving ceremony. And I was like, maybe I'll bring some Tibetan bowls and we'll do a sound healing also. I'm exploring some sound healing as well. But it's just something I was interested in. I mean, it's really down to that. And then I believe that certain tones, I think there are studies about this, certain tones and binaural frequencies that help to get you in certain states, like a theta or a gamma brainwave state, where you're more receptive and calm and able to connect to the divine forces. So without all the chatter that comes from your mind, it's like the same state that you can get to when you meditate. So I've just been interested in it, and it's just a natural thing to want to put that in the music. So we'll add it here and there. So like in the song 3.14, 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the song, I chime a Tibetan bell. Some people will know that, some people will hear it, but you know what? Most of the people have no idea that that's even there, but now you can go and listen. 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the song 3.14, you will hear the chime of the Tibetan bell. And that was done on purpose. So even if it's not readily listenable, it is a subtle thing that if you're in that space, you may be able to hear, although I just said it. So now you'll go and listen because I overtly said it.
But it's like if you're listening with your headphones and you're just chilling out, even if you're not listening for it, like subconsciously you're gonna pick it up. I believe part of my like healing journey after I retired from the military and got sober, and like I said, been on this like healing path. Like I was doing like hypnotherapy, kind of going back to some of my traumas to acknowledge it and heal the inner child and all stuff like that. And we would do things with the sound energy, the healing, the Tibetan bowls and stuff, and kind of sit in circle, like drum circles, all that what do they call it, juju, whatever, stuff that people that don't know, but it's like you feel that energy. I could feel the when the bowls go around, it's just like I feel it passing through, when you get into that state, and it's incredible. It's amazing.
It's all vibration. I mean, it in yoga and Hinduism and Buddhism, you know, it's like the vibration is very important. The Om is a vibration, and it's like the universal sound of the universe. It's the cosmic sound of the universe. And in the Bible, I think it's one of the first lines. It's like God spoke, you know, it is all vibration. So if we connect the dots, even among the religions or the philosophies or like, you know, metaphysical stuff, it's all talking about vibration. It's all vibration. We just know this much. We're still babies with what we know about what the hell's going on.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
You know, we feel it when an energy comes in. And if we can't always identify things because we don't have the words for it, we can still feel things. We just have to acknowledge them. And maybe as we evolve, we will have the words for them. But just because we don't have the words for these things doesn't mean they don't exist. I don't believe that. And things that just because we don't perceive something with our five senses doesn't mean they don't exist. There are feelings in our gut that we know are true. We just know it and we don't know why. And so I'm a big proponent of vibration and energy work. I just got my Reiki Master certificate a couple weeks ago. And it's all about energy healing. Healing, channeling the universal force through you to heal. So it's great stuff.
I would see somebody like that before too, because it's like, you know, you have so many, you know, blockages from either like physical trauma or mental trauma and stuff like that in my chakras. And, you know, like my root chakra was all backed up, and it wasn't just like take some X-Lax or anything, clear that out. You know, it had to get some energy going in there. But I wanted to, you know, I was reading too in one of the write-ups for you guys that you've been vocally described as a cross between Grace Slick, Stevie Nicks, and Whitney Houston, which is quite the compliment. What's it like? I mean, do you feel a lot of pressure when you
just a little, like just a little. Like I'm not a calm person before I go on the stage. Usually I am emotionally in this like I got to go into my zone. I don't know what I'm doing. So yes, I feel that all the time. I am always my worst critic, I'd say, when it comes to my vocals. I always think I sound like shit. So it's nice to hear. It's beautiful to hear those accolades and references and comparisons. But it's a constant struggle every day.
Well, another powerful female vocalist that I grew up listening to is Pat Benatar, and I really enjoyed your cover of Love is a Battlefield.
Thank you.
How did that, I mean, come together to add your own little, you know, spin on it?
Well, we wanted to do a cover, and we were like, what cover? We don't know. We went through like a host of ideas, and then we were driving down the thruway, and I was just singing it in the car.
Well, we were singing to the radio
version.
80s station was on.
To Pat's version.
That came on.
And Dave's like, that's it. That's the song. That's what we're going to do. And I was like, okay, great. So we went into the studio, and it was just the three of it. It was Dave, Jimmy, and I, and we just played it. And I kind of sang it originally the way I sang it on the recording. It was pretty much there. She never changed. I never really changed what I sang. Yeah. We did change some of the you know, we started playing with the bass lines and the guitar parts, and Jimmy came up with the drum parts. We were just tooling around with like 6/8 and 4/4, and we didn't know what we were doing. Yeah. And we just kind of I was playing the bass lines, some of the bass lines on the keyboard when we were upstate at the house that I grew up in. And it just kind of came in. It just happened. It happened with like very little rehearsal time. And then we went into the studio and Sahaj helped tweak some things for us, which was really cool. And then that was it.
I saw you
It was
guys worked
done.
with Sahaj too. Definitely a good dude, and like a lot of his work as well. So that was cool. How did that connection come together?
Like everybody kept telling me, you got to work with Sahaj. You got to work with Sahaj. Have you heard of Sahaj? You got to work with Sahaj. And I'm like, who is Sahaj? So I finally got in touch with him and I'm like, oh, I see why. He had gone to India and come back. I had gone to India and come back. He's kind of put some of the same Eastern twinge into things that I was putting into my work. And it was just a natural fit. And he's from New York originally. You know, it was just a lot of the same spices that mixed in his own way with his being and his experiences. So it was just a natural fit. It was really cool. And yeah, we're still working on stuff with Sahaj.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, everything like, you know, I mean, this entire conversation's going back to like, you know, the spiritual journey. You know, it's like even getting that Love is a Battlefield, you know, song felt like, you know, it was just like, you know, the right song speaking about like kind of, you know, our journey now. You know, we want to try and stay in love. It's a battlefield to try and stay in the love and the faith thing. And then, you know, then Sahaj coming into the picture is just like, this is amazing. I mean, you know, people will be like, oh, well, you know, weird coincidences. I don't believe in those anymore, you know, since I've been along on this journey, you know?
Yeah, no, it's, you know, like you said, manifestation. It's totally about that. And then again, that comes back to the name Vajra. Like it had to be Vajra. It couldn't be any other name because this whole music thing is all about that. And you know, when we were going through Love is a Battlefield, like in singing that, I have to have my own meaning for it. It's not, I don't really know what Pat was thinking when she was singing it, but I can kind of guess based on her video interpretation of what it was, but I don't even know if that was her video interpretation or if it was somebody else's interpretation of what the music sounds like. And so to me, my own version was exactly what you were saying. Like, how do we sit in the heart space when all this shit is flying around right now, especially like election, you know, now it wasn't election year when it came out, but we know that was coming, you know, and politics, religion, male-female relations, you know, Middle East turmoil, Ukraine, Russia turmoil. Like, it's like, where are we? Where are we going? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? We just came out of the pandemic, which totally fucked us up. For us, we were like, we stayed in New York City. We actually shot a lot of the footage for a lot of the videos in New York City during the pandemic because we're like, what are we going to do? We can't play any shows. We might as well shoot everything we can shoot so that when we release, we can just kind of, you know, we've got all the footage ready.
We got Times Square deserted.
Brooklyn Bridge deserted.
Brooklyn Bridge deserted. We were like, you know what? We'll take advantage of this. And we just went out and shot a few of the Irkalla videos just on the street. Nobody around. You know, some zombies in the Times Square area the night we shot. But you go there now, there's 1,000 people per square, you know, 15 feet. You can't get it by yourself.
Well, it was like, you know, I was watching the video for the your latest single, "Truth Has Many Lies," and just that scene of you walking backwards, you know, with all those people, and you know, I mean, obviously, it sends a better message having those people in that shoot, you know, but you know, which you couldn't have got during the pandemic. But I liked you know, everybody's going this way, and then you feel like, you know, I love what that was representing, especially then when you get to the office with the chain and the monkey video and all that that stuff. It's like, yeah, I feel you. I've been a servant to so many other causes, and I'm finally doing something for myself with the podcast, you know, and you know, ain't paying me, but the bills are getting paid, so I'm all right.
We're
I'm
in the
enjoying
same
what I'm
place,
doing.
we're in the same place, and it's a constant struggle, and we're always second guessing ourselves, and what is success? Is success an external measure? Is it an internal measure? Is our internal measure tapped and cued into who we are internally, or is it still tapped into what's external? I mean, all of these things are every day we struggle with these kind of issues, and I think everybody does. It's a universal thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But by the way, that scene, all of those people, none of them knew we were filming. It's total guerrilla filming.
No, I can tell. Yeah, I can tell. Well, look, I'm glad there was I'm glad you caught some New York kindness during that, on video, because
we got the lady with the hand.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine
I got all these glares
going a different way. Sometimes. Depends what area of New York I guess you're in. I don't know, but
yeah, we were in meatpacking. You'll see Google's in the background. We were like, oh, perfect. Get Google in the shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I definitely think I'm going to have you guys on for another episode, because there's so much we connect on with the spiritual aspect of things. But before we get ready to wrap up, I want to ask you guys some of the questions I normally ask guests that I have on.
Okay.
You talked about some of the earlier inspirations of music that kind of started you on your journey, but who would you say are your top 3 artists today?
Tool. Top, Alice in Chains. Tool, Alice in Chains, and it's hard to say top. It's really difficult to say top for me. Who would be the third? Right now I'm listening a lot to Om.
Nice. How about you, Dolly?
Yikes. Well, I got to throw Typo Negative in there, and probably, who am I listening to right now? Who do I always go back to? The first 2 Iron Maiden albums.
I knew it. I knew it was going to be Iron Maiden. Yeah.
I love Bruce Dickinson, but more power to Paul Di'Anno, who just passed. Those 2 albums were growing up my favorite, and I guess I'll throw early Merciful Fate, Melissa and Don't Break the Oath. I don't know. I say those because when I put on my iPod or whatever we have these days, I'll default to those kinds of things.
It's his screenshot.
My screen favorite thing is the Melissa album from Merciful Fate. But I love Venom. I love all that old stuff, and I love 70s music. Any of the 70s stuff. I grew up in 70s New York City. Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. I still
that never gets old for me either.
It never gets old. Never. And everything that goes along with that, completely different from the metal stuff, but it's also what I grew up with. My father was a hippie and all that stuff. I think remembering, but but how do you put a top 3 on?
Yeah, it's hard. You can't, really tough.
I know. I always put musicians on the spot with that one. It's like picking your favorite child, and you got 5 kids, and you can only pick the top 3. But what talking a lot about what this whole conversation's kind of revolved around. But what class do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school today?
Mandatory. Yoga.
I would say I was really bad at most classes, although I did graduate with pretty good marks. I think, I graduated as an English major, believe it or not. And I think English and stuff like that, because not because you have to speak English, but because just having a sense of literacy just is more comfortable to talk to somebody than if they're completely staring at you blank, Sure. So I guess some sort of literacy or whatever. I don't know. Maybe yoga goes along with that. I don't know.
Bring back nice face-to-face conversations over social media posts and texting.
Everybody's a zombie these days.
History is also important. My dad was a history professor. Mom was an English teacher. So history is a close second, I would say.
Well, you'll repeat history if you don't learn it.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's what Dad said.
And then, who are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
My mom, my dad, for sure. There's 2, obviously. I mean, and my brother. I guess those are the 3. But I mean, in terms of the world, I referenced Madonna. She was a strong performer who was out there just paving the way. Obviously, Martin Luther King would be a political hugeness. I'm giving you more than 3. Any one of those people. I mean, Jesus, Buddha, the Muhammad. It's like all of these spirit people. I could go on and on. There's a lot. There are a lot.
Yeah, with me, I have no idea. I like when things are questioned. So whoever is somebody that questions, the norm. What's the norm? People that go against the norm. I can't even think of anyone.
Malcolm X.
Peter Steele.
Peter Steele.
In the same way, brilliant person. I don't know.
Prince.
Yeah. I grew up. My only escape was music because I was a skinny kid. I never played sports. Got beat up in high school, the usual. And so the people that became that overcame that and just Ace Frehley picked up a guitar and just said, "Fuck everything. I'm just gonna play." And except. I would never want to end up like he is because he's a drunk, I guess. No, actually, I think he's sober now, but
is he?
But, some of those rock stars who did not take care of themselves, you look at them now and it's like, whoa, and I'm glad that whoever influenced me not to end up like that, because I know some people who are going in those directions, that were in my circle. So whatever
that are still alive,
a lot of them are. So people that take care of themselves, people that are we've watched some of the older yoga people. They're really big influences, because I'll look at somebody who's a couple of decades older than myself and they're in amazing shape, and like you, I've stopped drinking, back in the BILE days, I wouldn't enter a venue unless I was a 6-pack down. And then, now we're chugging whiskeys on stage, whatever it was, maybe I'll have a glass of wine now, not maybe, I will, but I haven't drank beer in 5 years, nice. And so, people that overcame that kind of stuff, I guess would be my influence,
Awesome. Well, guys, man, I really appreciate the time talking with you. And like I said, we'll definitely have to have another episode and get more into the, keep going down that spiritual rabbit hole, because I think a lot of this, needs to get out. There's a lot of people that, they don't know what they don't know when it's the right time, I guess, it's the right time. But before I let you go, for any fans out there that are new to hearing about Vajra and want to follow you guys on the rest of your journey and support the band, where would you send them?
You can go to our website. All the links are there. It's www.vajraofficial.com. V is in Victor, AJRA.
It's right here on the screen.
Official.com. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Nice.
So, yeah, Vajra
everything's there. Yeah, everything's there.
Or just Google Vajra band, you'll find us.
Yeah, you'll find us.
You can't not find someone.
Yeah, I was trying to do when I was going to check out some of the YouTube videos, until I put band in there, it was taking me to probably some of the other stuff we were talking about, but but yeah. lot of good stuff. I really appreciate this conversation, and then we'll have to do a continuation in the future. One last favor though, before I let you guys go, you mind cutting a promo ID for the show? Just introduce yourself, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Sure. You ready?
I'm ready.
You want to do it together?
You do it first. and
Okay. All right. Hi, this is Annamaria from Vajra, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle podcast.
And this is Dave from Vajra, and you're also listening to today's Boondoggle.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.